Hi everyone, it is time for a Money Management Monday video. It is Monday, I am filming. I'm determined to get a video posted today. Okay, here we go. I thought, because I haven't really made a lot of these videos yet, mainly because we don't have a job right now, and so it's kind of hard to talk budgets when there's not money coming in. And then it dawned on me that I actually have a voice, I don't know, I actually have a topic that I can share with you, and that is using the Dave Ramsey principles and what it looks like when you're basically in that emergency fund situation. So please bear with me while I try to get my thoughts in order while trying to do this. I actually wrote down kind of an outline, and I've been writing a ton of letters, so I really hope somebody didn't end up with my outline in their letter, because I have a feeling that's what happened. But so just bear with me. I'm a rambling person, I know, I get that. It's how I've always worked things out in my head. I've journaled and I've talked until I can work it all out. And yeah, here we go. All right. So one of Dave Ramsey's principles, and if you don't follow Dave Ramsey to the letter, I do think there are principles that you can take away that he has given. So emergency fund, I think a lot of financial gurus kind of talk about that, whether it's Dave Ramsey, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Larry Burkett, that one woman, I can never remember her name. Susie Orsman? Or is that the weight loss lady? Anyway, there's a emergency fund. Everybody recommends that. Everyone recommends paying off your debt. Everyone recommends, all these little steps, and it varies. Dave Ramsey, the reason why I typically fall back on his rather than anybody else is because it's just laid out in steps. And your first step is your emergency fund. Second step is pay off your debt. Third step is have 3 to 6 months worth of expenditures saved so that if something happens, you have that little nest egg. And to be honest, I never thought we would be in a position of needing it. So that 3 to 6 months of expenditures is also if there's a medical emergency, something for us to pay. If there is, my daughter gets married and we need to pay for her wedding, it's right there. If we need to buy a new car, it's right there. That 3 to 6 months, 10 grand is what that looks like for us. It's not just 3 to 6 months worth of expenditures. Typically, that is a tax return, give or take some of that. Man, it's definitely a Monday where you need the strongest cup of coffee you can find. So it's very daunting to say, well, how am I going to come up with 10 grand? It doesn't happen overnight, especially in our situation where a lot of our tax return does help pay for the rest of our expenses. I do want to put a caveat here. This is actually something I remember writing down on my outline that I was supposed to open up with, but here we are. And that is, it is always my fullest intention to be as transparent as I possibly can when I am sharing this information with you, and to be as accurate as I can. There is so much fakeness online, and that has never been my goal. It has never been to be something that I'm not. If that meant less views, if that meant less subscribers, if that just meant less, I was fine with that. There's definitely some There's definitely some periods of time when I'm frustrated, you know, I can't get everything to work, and then I go back to, you know what, this is just work with what you have. And all of that said, when I share these things and try to help others that are working on similar budgets, working in similar situations, and giving you what I can, I also know that not everybody's circumstances are the same. And it's very hard to take one person's story and apply it across the board and make it work for everyone. And that's actually just not possible. Everybody has different priorities. Everybody has different lifestyles. And the thing about lifestyles and your home and your priority is that it is your family. And so what we find important has to be what we find important. It doesn't have to be what other people find important for us. So when you are putting your financial plans out on paper, prioritizing what is important to you, what you're going to spend your money on, it's really, really important to, whatever the word is, now I was trying not to use too many of the same word, but anyway, it's really important to make sure that you are meeting your family's needs. And I don't just mean food, clothing, shelter, but the things that are important to your family. Whether that is a family night out once a week, once a month, going to eat dinner. If that is something that is very important to your family, then you need to make sure that you are working around that and are assessing if that time away is what is important, or the family coming together is important. You know, whatever it is, if there's really a situation where you have to save money, but it's about bringing that family together, then trying to recreate a restaurant at home might be the thing. But my point being, whatever it is, you need to figure out what's important. If it's important for you that you eat all organic, even if that means a higher grocery bill than a frugal budget would be, but that is important to your family, then you got to go and you have to do that. If it's more important that your family goes on these trips, and so it is, you're frugal in that aspect of making sure that those trips happen, then you need to make sure that you follow through with that, regardless of anything else that financial experts are saying. So for us, it is important that we can meet the needs of our family in whatever way possible that we can. It is not always possible. I'm going to say this, I really haven't shared this because it doesn't feel like it's my story to share. But I don't want it to be a stumbling block for anybody else working on their financial goals. During this time of trying to live off of our 3 to 6 months, and now we're in November, December, January, February, March. November, December, January, February, March. We're on our 5th month of my husband not working and bringing home a paycheck. So that being said, one of the things that I haven't shared, mainly because I didn't feel like it was mine to share, and this is where that balance of living online can look a little different, not because I'm trying to hide anything, but because I don't know what I can share. So there we go. I'll just leave it at that. So to cut to the gist, the last 2 months, I have a that is been very, very generous and has helped pay for our grocery bill and then some for the last 2 months. And because of that, we have actually been able to stretch out our savings just a little bit more to make sure that we meet all of our bills. And I know, this is another reason why I didn't want to share it. I know not everybody has that option or that in their pocket. I get it, I know, and I would hate for what, well, it's a blessing for me, end up being a discouragement for anyone else. but at the same time, it is a part of our story, and it is part of how we've been able to do this. So there's that. I'm going to lay that out. The community Facebook page that I try to keep going, there's been some lovely people on there that have supported us as well, and it has been such a help. 100 here every month, easily, and I'm just so grateful and thankful. And so that being said, let's kind of get into how I actually need to check that. Hold on. My husband's in a interview for a job right now, so I really had to make sure I took that. Nothing yet. Okay, back to where we were, if I can remember. Okay, so trying to do these last few months of living with that Dave Ramsey of 3 to 6 months, we just have it in savings, do what we can, was a huge benefit to us. However, I want to kind of go back even further and show you what this journey looked like. So when we returned from our vacation in July of 2023, shortly after Samantha, our car, her name is Samantha, basically gave up the ghost. And we were going to be faced with getting a new car just after accepting the call to Canada. Now, we had about that 10 grand in our savings account. We've always tried to keep it at that for such a time as this. It was only then that we learned in the market for today, and the car that my husband wanted to invest in was not going to be enough. We were looking for a car with low mileage. We did end up finding one that was not in our budget, and the church group came together and helped us finance the rest. That being said, this is one of those things that I also struggled to share. Not because it's not mine to share, but because it really dances a line that I'm not comfortable with. But at the same time, I feel like this is important to the whole financial journey, and that is, to the best of my ability, I have been trying to pay back the church fund, the churches and fund and the mission fund and the whole group. I've been trying to pay that back in so much as possible, with the side hustles and everything like that, so that when the next person comes up that needs a helping hand, it is there for them as well. So after we spent pretty much our savings trying to get the vehicle and that, then we had to look at moving. Now, it was really important to me that I tried to keep as strict records as I could of trying to move, but honestly, when you're in the middle of moving and all of the stuff that it entails, there's no way to keep track of it. But between the gas, which was very minor, going from just a 5-hour trip, but gas to look at all the houses, gas to go back and forth to a storage unit, I mean, it just adds up. Eating out, because you didn't have, as much as I tried to plan for, we ate out more. The Airbnb cost, the storage unit cost, the down payment, first month and last month rent on our lot, the house, the insurance, all of these things. I would have to say that our family easily spent about $6,000 to $7,000 to move. So we've bought the car, we spent about $6,000 to $7,000 to move, but we did take equity away on our house. But we are now on month 5 without a paycheck for my husband working. If you are new and you don't know the whole backstory, we have been looking for a job. As a stay-at-home mom, it was always important to me that it doesn't, unless I got a really well high-paying job that I could afford to pay for daycare for my children, It wasn't worth it for me going to work, especially in my area now that I need to add a lot of gas. So going back and forth and then back and forth in a van, I need to add gas because going to Walmart is about a 20-minute trip. And that adds gas. I have to get onto the freeway. I have to take side roads. I have to go down a huge major downtown thing with stops and starts. These are all the things that I think of when I look at jobs. And getting a $14 an hour part-time job doesn't always pay for me to get a job. It is better for me to stay at home, raise my children, do home-cooked meals that are a little bit more frugal than drive-through, and make things work that way. However, I joined the search in trying to find a job because at this point my husband could be home and could watch the kids until he could find a job. So during this time of trying to find a job, we have been living off of Dave Ramsey's ideal of 3 to 6 months because we were able to have that with the equity that we took on our Indiana home. When we left Indiana, we definitely had to really put away our expectations on what we could find in a house here. The houses were really expensive than what we were prepared for, and the interest rate is ridiculous right now. Not only that, so your mortgage payment every month is going to be high. Not only that, trying to get a mortgage in our area was really difficult when my husband and I haven't lived here for, I believe it had to be 2 years. There's a couple other things now that my brain is, might be a little muddled on the exact details because of other things that I have applied for, and I have to be a resident of Michigan for X number of years. So anyway, there was all of these things that really worked in choosing our home, and in the end we did something that went way below our budget, purchased a home completely cash, got it as a fixer-upper because we knew once we fixed it up we could even take a little bit more equity on it, which might help cover the rent cost for the year. And so those were some things that, those were some decisions that we were making. So one of the things that I really wanted to say with the whole 36 months is also adding to that, by having the format that we have of how we pay our bills, we actually were able to extend that 3 to 6 month savings to an extra month. So I have talked about this in a video, and that is where when you start your budget, I like to budget a month at a time. I don't like to try to figure out, well, this paycheck is going to pay for this, this, and this. And this paycheck, I don't like to do that. That becomes so complicated, and I'm afraid that I'm going to mess something up with that, especially when your bills can be a little bit more variable however, if I have everything laid out, I can be like, okay, so this is a little bit more this month, so because of that we're going to do this a little bit less, but I can have it across the board and see it that way. And I've talked about that in a video. If I can remember which one it is, I will leave it linked down below. But the idea here is this is the best time to do it, which is why I'm bringing it up, on your tax return season. You try to live bare minimum expenses for a month. Do a no spend month. Eat beans and rice for a month. Do whatever it is that you can do to live as small as humanly possible. And you live off of savings. And then you take your paychecks. You take that month's worth of paychecks and you save it. And then at the end of April, you take all of April's paychecks and you budget for May's. Usually by the end of April, you're going to start getting bills for the next month. And so then you're going to basically start writing them out. It helps get a little bit ahead in whatever way, and Then you're going to take all of May's paychecks and budget for June. And that way, when you hit something like we did when my husband brought in no money in November, we were still able to pay all of December's bills that we had to kind of close out. So the water bills and all of that. Gotta change the battery. I'll be right back. So that was something that was really helpful during this time. Now, as pretty much, I'm gonna say, like, the money is running out. That sounds, okay. But as the money is running out, basically, and we're kind of like, okay, what do we do now? We haven't stopped looking for jobs. Like I said, my husband's in a interview right now. We have to kind of start thinking, okay, what next? Like, to be honest, we always thought there is plenty of work out there for everyone. You just have to apply for the job. Well, apparently everybody else is thinking that, and so you are competing with a bunch of people in the work world. But you have to start getting a little bit more creative in ways to bring in money. So things like surveys, paying for surveys. Can you add that to your time, while you're on trying to fill in applications, do a couple of surveys and see if you can get a little bit of money for that. There's all the things. Okay, well, we had a budget of this amount set aside for groceries, but we're gonna have to see if we can get some more food pantries going, or maybe bartering online. Hopefully many of you are in a situation where you're in a town where you have friends, family, people that you know, church nearby that can really support you in this. However, if you're in a new place and you don't really have or know anybody, it can be a little bit more difficult kind of getting out there and trying to get work. But if you have it, ask your friends, ask your family, hey, does anybody need some cleaning done this weekend? Hey, does anybody need me to drive you around to do errands? We could really use the work right now. And usually if you put that kind of like, hey, I'm willing to work, we're trying to find some things in your family circle, there are family friends circle, there are people that are going to want to try to figure out a way to help you, and you can work for that and keep your dignity. It's really, really hard. It's really, really hard. It's very humbling. It's very hard. It's a huge blessing. It's so many mixed things to have to be in need. It really is. And if you can give back in whatever way, and you can work in some way to make it something, I don't know what the word is, it kind of builds your dignity up a little bit. So if somebody's in that situation where they're looking for work and you can give it to them, please do it. I know there are so many generous people, and I'm one of them, that are just like, here, just take the money, and we want it to bless you. But there's that bit of dignity that if you can say, hey, I've got this amount, if you can go and do this for me, that would be a huge help. This is so worth it. Then you're helping them, and you're letting them also work for it. And it's a bit of a boost to somebody that's already in that position. So if you're in that position, just putting yourself out is one of the hardest things to do. I hate trying to sell myself. I hate trying to say, hey, I've got these qualities that you really need. I hate it. It's like, no, I can do what you need me to do. I may not be the best at it, but I can do it. It's hard to sell yourself without selling yourself, if you know what I mean. But anyway, these are just some of the things that I've learned. I don't know if there's any huge takeaway here. Definitely more of a chit chat, but having that one thing that we did to be ahead of our bills was a huge help. Getting an ideal realistic of, okay, it's going to be about $6,000 to $7,000 to move. That's about what my sister's was. That's about what a friend of mine was. I actually didn't ask about My Washington friend. I need to do that. Oh, she told me. Anyway. When they moved, oh, replacement of furniture, that's included in that cost. That kind of knowing you can do it for less, you can do it for more, it can be more. Just if I know that for our size family, that's a good amount, that's something I'm going to take away. And it will go up. If in 10 years we decide that we need to move somewhere else, I need to know that, okay, the cost is probably going to be up too. And it also depends on where you move. But moving costs, I don't think we would have been able to be where we are without the love and support of so many. And that is not something I take for granted every single day. My only hope is that I can give back in some way in which we have been given. But to take all of this and then to try to help somebody out with their finances, it's definitely a little bit more challenging in order to say, well, this is what we did, and they may not have the same situation, but that's going to be the case no matter what. So here's what happened. Here are some things that I really thought was very helpful to us, and that is that being ahead, we don't go and our priority is that we can meet needs in as much as possible, and so we don't do the trips, we don't eat all organic, we do try to eat as healthy as possible. I do mess up and go for easy and convenient a lot of times, but the priority is to make sure that our financial needs can be met. And that looks like not spending our tax return. That looks like saving it for the rainy day that comes every single time. Usually when we're in a place where we can make it work. God has been so gracious to us in that. And then the principles that we just have in life. Now, I don't live like a tightwad. It's something that I have been working on since the day I got married, and that was 18 years ago. I'm still working on it. I definitely have peaks and valleys on that, but I think that's just part of my personality that I'm always going to have to be working on. And that's something that, again, we can take away and we can apply to our financial situation in that aspect as well. It's realizing that this is part of our personality, this is part of our weakness, and this is part of things that we need to figure out how to implement in order to make us stronger, to make us accountable, and to do better. All right, I have talked an awful lot. I hope the laundry got folded, the bathrooms got cleaned, the dishes were washed, the meal was made, whatever it is that you are doing while listening to me rambling on was successful. And we will wrap it up here so I can go do the mother thing that I need to do. And I hope it was an encouragement. It may not have had the steps like Dave Ramsey gives us to do, to take away, but I hope it's, okay, here's another step into that. All right, speaking of steps, I did do a video on like all the things that you can do to help save money, and I will try to leave that link down below, because I put a lot of thought and effort into that, and I hope it's really helpful. All right, sayonara, and until the next video,